I've never been in the military, I've never been in combat, but I tell you what, after seeing Warfare, I think I have a pretty good idea of what it may have been like. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the garage. Gerald here with you, of course. Another movie review for you today. A couple days ago, I got to see the new Alex Garland directed film, Warfare. He co-directed it with a friend and colleague of his, Ray Mendoza, who was an ex-U.S. Navy SEAL, and this is actually a story and an event that he lived through during the Iraq War. Alex Garland has basically been one of my favorite filmmakers for the last decade. Films like Annihilation, Ex Machina, and even last year's Civil War, which cracked my top 10 of the year, are some of my favorite films in recent memory. What we have here with Warfare and his collaboration with Mendoza is something a little bit different for Garland, at least, and in terms of a war film, it is unlike any one of those that has ever been made. Let's talk about it. A platoon of American Navy SEALs on a surveillance mission gone wrong in insurgent territory. A boots-on-the-ground story of a modern warfare and brotherhood told in real time and based on the memories of the people who lived it. Now, most of my reviews here on YouTube are spoiler-free, and this one, my intention will also be to be spoiler-free. However, with Warfare, it's kind of weird because this is almost not even like a movie, frankly. It is more so about the event and about the action that unfolds over the course of about 90 minutes, which is taking place essentially in real time as to how it happened in real life back in 2006. So a lot of times in my reviews, I would be critiquing, the performances or the score or, the editing, obviously the direction. A lot of that stuff I might talk about today, but this is not a regular movie. So this is definitely going to go down as a war film because it is a very in the trenches, in your face, violent, hard to watch, frankly, at times, but in a good way, I would say, in an eye-opening way. War film. The interesting thing with this follow-up to Civil War, from Garland at least, is that a lot of people's critique of Civil War last year, not mine, because like I said, I loved it, but a lot of people said they were disappointed that there was no stance taken, that we didn't really know who the good guys were or who the bad guys were, who Jesse Plemons was fighting on behalf in that one scene.
Okay. What kind of American are you?
But I kind of like the ambiguity there, and I like leaving it up to the viewer and also kind of laying out this realistic kind of narrative that, does any of it really matter? Like, what are we doing here regardless of what side you're on? What is our ultimate end goal with those types of things? And I'm speaking about wars. Now, in Warfare, you can research, you can Google, you can read books about the Iraqi war in 2006 and under the various presidents that were involved in that war and our government stance, and you can kind of find out perhaps what Mendoza and his team of Navy SEALs, it actually follows two teams in the film, what they were doing, why they were surveilling, why they had snipers on the roof. You can find all that stuff out through researching it, but you will not find that out by watching Warfare. If you have a knowledge of it, or if you're ex-military and were perhaps involved in the Iraqi war, then you'll definitely have a lot more knowledge about what's taking place. If you're me, a casual viewer who likes war films, you're not going to know what their ultimate itinerary is versus the Iraqi citizens. They arrive on this village, they take over a house, a family's house, with the intent of setting up shop there to surveil potential Iraqi terrorists. That's how I took it. There's another Navy SEAL team that we're not following initially that is a few blocks up the road in the same neighborhood who has done the same thing. And they're kind of surveilling from the other angle, these folks that they consider to be dangerous. After we get a pretty energetic and kind of hilarious opening scene, I actually thought I was in the wrong movie. If you've seen it, you know what I mean. If you haven't seen it, I don't want to spoil it. But there's about a 2 or 3 minute opening scene with all of our main characters from both of those SEAL teams kind of rejoicing and partying together. I won't go into details as to what's happening, but it was actually quite funny and quite endearing once you kind of realize what's happening, and it kind of promotes the brotherhood of military and the camaraderie that these gentlemen feel with each other. Then it will cut to our title card for Warfare. Once it does that and we're in the neighborhood that they're taking over, that's when it starts real time. So from there, it's like maybe 85 minutes or so, but it plays out straight. And another thing I want to mention is from that point on to the end of the film, until the credits roll at least, there's no music. Now, I could be wrong. I actually researched it to find out information on that. I don't think there was any score in this film during the military scenes and during when they're doing their surveillance work within the houses, which I found to be a deliberate choice because the whole reason Warfare works for me is because it is extremely realistic, and Garland and Mendoza place you in that house with those SEAL teams. You feel the exact same threat that those young men must have been feeling on that day. Fear, adrenaline, whatever. You feel that too throughout the course of that 85 minutes or so. And I think that a score, while it can solicit emotionality based on what's happening to characters or plot twist, it can take away from your overall connection to what's happening in the scene. And there's none of that here. You just have to live with what's happening on screen, and you are a part of it, kind of whether you want to be or not. The movie is based on the memories of the gentlemen that are still alive that were a part of this mission. Ray Mendoza, of course, as he was the director, and he is portrayed in the film. His character is actually in the movie, played by young actor DeFaro Wunatai, who does a tremendous job. And I didn't even realize while I was watching it that was supposed to be a reinterpretation of the director, Ray Mendoza. I found that out after by listening to an interview with him and Alex Garland. Their memories serve as essentially the screenplay to this movie. I was listening to interviews with Garland and Mendoza, and it was a collaborative process where all of the living military members that were there and Garland kind of brainstormed the best way to put what they remember happening on screen. And they would collaborate. So if one person remembered something one way and another soldier remembered it a different way, or no, you didn't do that, I did that, then they would have a tiebreaker come in, which one of us did this? And then they would film the scene that way. You know, we didn't pull the body into the house this way, we pulled it this way. You know, and they would kind of rewrite the story in their mind in real time, as opposed to sitting down and writing beats in a screenplay. And I find that fascinating. So it does play out very authentic. It's like I said, it's really hard to explain. This is definitely the first movie of its kind, at least in the war genre, that I can think of, because it's not cinematic in the way that a normal movie would be. It's almost like there was a documentarian there filming it, and then they released their footage like a found footage almost. I mean, it's filmed a lot more beautifully because it's Alex Garland, of course. The cinematography, etc., is a lot better than just a found footage 80-minute clip. But that's almost like somebody found an 80-minute VHS tape from when it was recorded, and that's what we have here, just with heightened, quality. In terms of the pacing of the film, it's only a little over 90 minutes long total. The opening scene is hilarious, like I said. That's high energy. That really kind of gets you going, like, okay, what's this going to be? And then once we get to the mission, and from there, there's probably about a 20 to 30 minute, I don't want to say lull, because it was kind of important setup for what was happening with taking over the houses in that area, etc. But it's just, nothing really happens. It's literally soldiers in a house talking over the radio, taking notes, surveilling houses across the street, an occasional joke to each other, talking about their upcoming mission the next morning. I mean, it's literally just them talking to each other for like 20 minutes. It's not edited and spliced up to like keep you enthralled on the edge of your seat in that first 20 minutes. It's just, this is what happened. This is how these guys remember this happening. This is how they remember these conversations. These are the little things that may have happened that led to an ultimate tragedy that ends up happening in the movie. And they're kind of spaced in there, but they're real. They're not like Hollywood MacGuffins that are thrown in, like, as a part of foreshadowing for us. It's just, here's the 20 minutes that we're covering before shit goes down, and this is it. But the last hour or so of the film, once we get through that kind of setup and that kind of like dude sitting around in a room, is like absolutely the most intense shit I've ever seen in a movie theater in a long time. Because again, this is a real thing that happened. It's a real event, pretty recent, honestly. I mean, the director is one of the guys that we're watching in the movie that was about less than 20 years ago, coming up on the 20th anniversary, actually, of this particular event in 2006. And it's just a lot of guarding themselves. There's a couple tragedies that occur. I don't want to give anything away, but the Iraqis do kind of defend themselves when we're there, the U.S., I mean. And it becomes a bit of a battle, an actual battle with various guns and bombs and tanks, and anything else that existed during the Iraqi war was probably shown in this film in terms of weaponry. So it is very edge of your seat, nail biting, holy crap. And it's also, like I said, very horrific. I am positive on the film, but I'm going to give you my overall score. And I want to wrap up by saying I've seen a lot of discourse about this movie online, and I can understand that because, like I mentioned with Civil War, the same thing happened. Everybody either loved it because they were like, oh, like me, like, oh, this is great. You didn't have to tell me what I'm supposed to think. You just showed me the conflict, and I think what I want to think, and I side with who I side with. And in Warfare, it's the same thing, except this is not fictional like Civil War was. This is a real life depiction of actual events. Not only that, it's being told by the people that lived it. But I thought there was a deliberate choice made by Garland for sure, because I could see the Civil War kind of bleed over here. But also, when listening to Mendoza, it's funny because he's like, "Nah, I didn't think about that. This is just what happened. I'm just telling you what happened." He said it wasn't his job to give you the history of the Iraqi War and why the U.S. was involved, and I agree with that. That would have made this a completely different movie. That would have definitely been a more one-sided type of narrative. But at the end of this film, I will just, this is not a spoiler because, you can't really spoil the Iraqi War. Your stance on the U.S.'s involvement in it is going to be what it's going to be regardless of the end of this film. But I don't see this as war propaganda, me personally. Now, I've seen a lot of folks online. It's basically a split. And I've seen like half of the folks that I follow on Twitter or various periodicals or whatever that think this is another war propaganda film and it's kind of promoting war. I don't see it that way. In fact, I see it the opposite way, because the whole time I'm watching this, I honestly see it as sad for the U.S. troops, because you look at it and you go, for what? Why? For what? What are we doing this for? Now, I know there's a larger narrative to it, and I respect and love our military and everything that they do for this country. But I also do find it sad at times that the end result sometimes doesn't hold the value that it should for the lives that we lose or the injuries that are incurred. And it is a huge price that we pay for some of these various conflicts that we get ourselves involved in. This review is not supposed to be political, but my point is that I think that Garland, at least Garland specifically, made this, I don't know if I'll say anti-war, but he definitely made it ambiguous to where you're not going to be swayed one way or the other. You're probably going to see it from your viewpoint that you already have going into the movie. So if you're pro-war, which I know is a weird term to use, but if you're pro-war or okay with the U.S.'s involvement in foreign affairs, then this is not going to change your mind. And if you're somebody like me who's kind of neutral, but is also like, do we really need to fight in this war? Like, why are we fighting in this war? My mind didn't change. So at the end of the film, bloodshed. Mayhem, chaos, bombs, houses leveled, lives lost on both sides. Just the place is literally on fire with smoke and blood on the walls and everything. And the family that this home was confiscated from by us comes out. Everybody's gone. All the soldiers left. For all intents and purposes, all the Iraqi folks that were fighting aren't there. And it's literally nothing but blood and smoke all over the place. And silence. Again, no music. And the Iraqi family, who is a couple, and I think 2 kids, I believe, a teenager and then a younger kid, maybe 3, come out of the bedroom that they've been hiding in. And the dad's going, well, you can come out now, they're gone. And it's just, the shot holds on the family in their home in literal rubble. And they're just kind of standing there hugging each other. And we're obviously innocent bystanders to what took place, or at least that's the implication. Garland or whoever specifically decides to show a shot of a family photo of them that's still hanging on the wall, kind of crooked. So I can't believe it didn't fall off, by the way. So there was some deliberate choices made there, at least from my perspective, to show me that, yeah, we fought this, but what did we get out of it? And I'm talking about that mission specifically. I don't want to do a whole political thing about the Iraqi war. I'm not arguing that. Plus, I'm not super knowledgeable on what the outcome was, so I'm not really giving you a stance on the war in general. But of that mission, of that 90-minute window that we were witnessing, what did we benefit from that? What did we get from that? Nothing. In fact, we lost a lot from that. And I don't even think, based on what happens in the movie, that we really got any intel in the war, at least it doesn't show us that, to assist with the rest of the war. So at the end of the day, I just don't get it. That mission specifically, and I'm sure there were lots of those like it, not only in the Iraqi war, but various wars around the world. So in wrapping up, I think Warfare is a very brutal, visceral, violent, hard to watch film that will go down as one of the more gut-punching war films, frankly, of all time. I love that it was a short 90 minutes. I love the inventiveness and uniqueness of filming it essentially in real time. It's not one shot, obviously. There are edits, but it doesn't skip time. It doesn't cut quieter moments because they're boring. It just leaves them in there. And this is the 90-minute window that happened that led up to this tragedy, that whatever. And here it is. I love the inventiveness of that, and I also love the creativity of using these guys' memories to tell the story, because a lot of people have been asking online, what's the point of this movie? And for me, even though I said, what's the point of this conflict, this particular mission, I don't ask that about the movie, because for me, the point of the movie was to pay homage and to serve as a remembrance of what these gentlemen went through. In this specific instance, of course, there's maybe 20 or so dudes that we focus on, but as a whole, the U.S. troops really every day, but definitely during conflicts like the Iraqi War, Afghanistan, etc., like what they go through. It was to kind of show us this is the real-time shit that's going down here. So respect your troops. I mean, that's kind of the way I took it. And even though I might disagree with the higher ups choosing to do certain things on the war field, I'm never going to, look down on the soldiers, the Navy SEALs, the Marines, the folks that are out there doing it. And when you see snapshots like this, it really puts those types of things into perspective, at least from a U.S. point of view. I usually talk about the performances. I won't really do that with this review because there's no performances that are like front and center. I mean, the perspective changes in this movie constantly. You think your lead is going to be Will Poulter, who does a phenomenal job as one of the leaders of the first platoon, and he kind of starts to undergo some of the trauma of what's happening to his men. So he does a great job. I love Will Poulter. You also got Charles Melton in there, who shows up a little bit later because he's the leader of the second platoon that comes to rescue them. Joseph Quinn, Kit Connor. So it is a bit of a who's who of young Hollywood, and they all did phenomenal. The direction is impeccable. I love Ray Mendoza's personal attachment and touch to the film as well. I think that adds another element to it that we maybe didn't get in Civil War, is that personal touch. So Warfare hit me hard. It is a visceral watch. I'm going to give it a high score, an 8 out of 10 on Warfare. I do recommend seeing it, although if you have been involved in wars, especially the Iraqi War, it could be a PTSD enhancer. So be careful, because it is intense. I mean, it's like you're there. It literally is like you're there. So far, one of the best movies of 2025, as we're still early in the year, but I did really like it, and Garland continues his streak. What did you guys think of Warfare? Let me know down below. Have you seen it, or are you planning on seeing it? Let me know what you think of my take of the overall kind of theme of the movie. I don't know. I'm not necessarily going to say anti-war, but it's not pro-war either. Let me know what you thought down in the comments. I'll see you out here next time in the garage.